Baba mi, Èṣù. Wá Èṣù, wá Èṣù.
Peace. Peace and welcome everyone to another segment of Community on Enlightenment and Transformation. My name is Chief Yuya. For those of you who are listening fresh, new, and green and have never tuned in before, and I want to say welcome to you all, as well as to all of those who are current or historical listeners coming in from the chat room. Peace to you all. I see you all in there getting warmed up. And everyone coming in through YouTube and of course through Blog Talk. I think this transition, we've been speaking about it for some time in terms of phasing out the Blog Talk radio piece and using a different method in order to allow for our call-ins. I think everything is working out in great timing in terms of that, because normally we have a lot of callers on Blog Talk, but I'm noticing since I've been having that conversation and really since they messed up their system, and if you're on T-Mobile, they try to charge you extra and all that other foolishness. When people try to call in, I'm noticing that a lot more people are enjoying the YouTube side of it. So I think the transition, give thanks, Brother Dietrich. Appreciate that. Yeah, man. I think the transition will be a smooth one as a result, so yeah, man, I think people will be able to transition pretty quickly and easily over to wherever, because it looks like Blog Talk kind of proverbially shot themselves in the foot. But I'm gonna give you the call-in number anyway for the amount of time that we're going to continue to use it, if it's more convenient for you to call in that way. And of course, before we get our next phone number. So the call-in number on Blog Talk is 515-605-9862, 515-605-9862, if you prefer to come in through that direction. Yeah, so, we were having a real good dialogue yesterday, just building on the fluidity of water and the necessity of adaptation and the necessity of fluidity in the work that we do. And I think it was an important topic for all of you to kind of dig into. I'm big on the elementals. If anyone has noticed that, you know, um, even before really speaking in terms of different systems, spiritual systems and things like that, it's always good to start with your elements, especially like when you're coming in. That's one of the reasons why I wrote Shrine and Altar. If you read that book, any of you who own a copy of Shrine and Altar, you notice that there's a heavy emphasis on actual elements, not just put this on your shrine, put that on your shrine, put that on your altar, put that on your altar, but really why we put certain things and what elements that certain things represent, and that's something that I've always been very big on, because when you get at least a decent understanding, even if it's cursory, if you get a decent understanding of the elements, you can apply that to anything. It's almost like math, but you can apply it to different systems, because in any system that you deal with, if it's indigenous, it's going to be nature based. You're not going to, all indigenous systems are nature based. I mean, you're not going to find one that isn't. You're really just not. Even if some are a bit more celestial than others, and some lean to certain elements more than others, and you may find that, right, systems that are even in the same country, but you go from village to village or town to town, and there's a leaning towards a certain element more than another element, but either way they're still dealing with elements. So it's almost like a universal language, because all of these elements are active inside of the body for all of us walking the earth. So when you tap into some of those universal pieces, man, I'm telling you, it makes this studying a lot easier. It really does, even when you're studying your mythology and things like that, man. So that's one of the reasons why I lean on elements so heavy, sometimes even more than teaching about the archetype, because once you get the elements, and then I introduce the archetype to you, you'll understand why certain ones are mated to each other, or this one is called the father of that one, or gave birth to this one, or this, that. And then, you get your basic understanding of your alchemy, and then you'll understand, okay, well, this is why this one puts this together, this one puts that one together, and this happens, or that happens, so forth and so on. So yeah, man, that's why we lean in that direction a lot, when we're talking about different things. And as usual, like I always say, I'll go through some of the comments. I saw one question that I don't know if it was answered. Peace, brother Zach. That's good, man, because actually I was just about to reference you. I just saw brother Zach in the chat room say peace, and I was just about to say something that was going to reference him. But yeah, I saw a question yesterday that brother Zach came in, and I do appreciate that, man. I came in and gave an answer to. I don't know if the sister if the sister received it, if she got everything she needed. I saw a follow-up question, but it was related to his segments, right and exact. But sister, I'm gonna just say Jack, Smedge Jack. I know who that is, because I recognize those cheekbones, sis. I know who you are. I remember when we met. But your handle on YouTube is Smedge, Seem or Seemj Jack. I could be saying it wrong. But she said, if it's a man's nature, because yesterday we had touched upon, I don't really remember, but I do remember saying the word polygyny. It wasn't a show about polygyny, but I think I was giving an example about something about sometimes people will pull in multiple women for, multiple power sources, in a sense. And she said, if it's a man's nature to be with more than one woman, why is it the demise of so many relationships? Most, or rather some women don't want to share a mate. I don't, but I want a better understanding why men and women, parentheses, some, don't agree on having one mate. And then brother Zach answered her and said, peace, Smedge. If you go to the 42nd minute mark in the segment and hit play to answer, he answers your questions, one love. Of course, I don't remember what I spoke about at 42 minutes, but Brother Zach had included that. And I'm just going to add a little bit of piece, because again, that was a question presented yesterday. And thank you, Brother Zach, again for coming in and shedding some light on that. I would say this first thing, a lot of times when you guys ask questions, and I know it seems often that I'm being, antagonistic and just kind of not I'm being uncooperative even to a sense. But like I said, it's not that. It's not that. What it is that sometimes there's misunderstanding right down to the very root of your question, because sometimes your questions are more complicated than your current state of consciousness. And that comes from being introduced, being inundated with a lot of information without a lot of understanding. So sometimes people will ask certain questions, but they don't really have the root principles of understandings of the terminology of the very question. So therefore, they may actually be asking something that makes no sense whatsoever. And if you tell them that, if you say it just like that, that doesn't make any sense. Of course, it's offensive. You got to be a little bit more tactful than that. So sometimes you'll see what I'll do is I'll say, okay, well, what does that word mean? What does that mean? Let's get some common definitions. And then hopefully if a person realizes that the actual mathematics of the question doesn't even add up to a question, then they'll go back and kind of what we call woodshed. Woodshed, I don't know if you all are familiar with that term, but that's a term we used to use a lot in the musicians community. Sometimes you'll be playing a gig, or you might have a sit-in open mic or something, and a guy come out with his axe, his instrument, and he'll come to play, and basically he sucks. He can't play to a guy or girl, and they can't play too great, and then they may, they may kind of get a little embarrassed, or you may have to sit them down and say, no, give me back my guitar, get off that drum set, and then they'll go and they'll practice, and they may come back a couple months later or even a year later and just, be killing it. Well, that's called woodshedding. You go into the woodshed in the backyard, close the door, and you just sit there and you just practice your heart out, so sometimes I'll ask certain questions to give people an opportunity to woodshed without just saying, you don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't help things. And like I said, I'm never here to embarrass you. Even though some people get embarrassed when they call, sometimes it's because of wayward ego or because they're trying to embarrass me. But anyway, so the sister asked that question, and I'm gonna just throw my little 2 cents in and speak about just the qualifying nature of the question. So you said if it's a man's nature to be with more than one woman, again, that sets a premise. So if we're saying if that's hypothetical or truthful, because I don't think it's in every man's nature to be with more than one woman. That's not what I advocate. So if that's the basis of the question, now whatever comes after that is disqualified. But I'm just going to go through it just to give you an example. So if it's a man's nature to be with more than one woman, I don't think it's in all men's nature to be with more than one woman. More than one woman. I think strong men, organized men, matured men, and more specifically, alpha men. It's always in an alpha man's nature to be with more than one woman. That's just what it is. Okay, but some men can't handle more than one woman. Some men can't handle one committed relationship. So it's not necessarily, we build up to wherever we can be. And, if you have someone who's been struggling all their lives, figuring out how to relate to women and relate to themselves, and then they finally get to that point where they can understand, they may not be able to go from having all of this thorniness and this clumsiness as it pertains to relationships, and then immediately, okay, I'm gonna take on 3-4 wives. It's not really realistic. And it doesn't mean that the person may not be a man. They may have achieved manhood, but maybe they were a late bloomer, So now I wouldn't necessarily say I'm not an advocate of prescriptive monogamy, and I'm not an advocate of prescriptive polygyny. I'm not an advocate of anything that's prescriptive when it comes to a relationship. You do what works for your building. You do what works for your community. That's what I advocate. But I'll continue forward just to kind of clarify my position a little bit. And then you said, so based on that premise, right? Which I'm saying I don't think is a totally truthful premise, you know. But I understand you're saying maybe what you thought I was saying. Um, and you said, why is it the demise of so many relationships? Well, I don't think the demise, in my opinion, of so many relationships is a man's nature wanting to be with more than one woman or being with more than one woman. Um, you'll find that a lot of women don't necessarily have an issue with that as long as there's some honesty and she's not being disgraced in the process. You know, and I'm not saying that for all women. I'm saying that for many women that I've come across, that I've spoken to, that I've counseled, that I've observed. You know, we can just kind of go through the list. That the demise, because we'd have to say in that case, if that's the case, then monogamous relationships, you know, should be in the pink right now. They should be healthy and thriving. And of course, we know that that's not the case. So I don't think the demise of so many relationships is men wanting to be with more than one woman, or women wanting to be with more than one man, for that matter, because you know there are women who sometimes have trouble with monogamy as well. I think the issue more is character defect within the people. You know, a lot of times people have not been matured, nor have they been prepared for marriage, you know, or, well, actually, you didn't say marriage, you said relationships. So let me use the right wording. You said, why is the demise of so many relationships? A lot of people have not been taught relationships. You know, some people come from environments where they're in a home, they're in a home environment where there's no love. It's dysfunctional. They've never actually seen conscious love or any kind of love, any type of deliberate love expressed between two people. They may see affection, you know, they may see duty and responsibility, but no one is really educating them on how we relate to each other, especially if they have no culture, they have no family culture, no personal culture, no community culture. There's so many different things that are missing. You know, I have to tell you honestly, sis, like I don't sit back and figure out at this point in my life, I don't sit back and figure out so much why the culturalists can't seem to get it together or try to figure out solutions for people who want to dip and dab. You know, if you're not a part of a progressive indigenous culture that speaks to your ethnic roots, then nothing you do is going to work, period. So it's not because of being more than one woman or this or that. It's just because you don't have a culture. You know, so if we were to say, like you used the word many, and you know, well, yeah, many people don't have a culture, so their relationships are not going to work. There are cultures all around the world. You keep in mind that 75% of the world is polygynous. In fact, I would say this, to be totally honest with you. Um, Monogamy is really the aberration. Monogamy is the abnormality, which is one of the reasons why it's so difficult to do monogamy. And then people say you should have some self-control, but it's not about self-control. It's not about self-control at all. Um, you got to always remember that what this society gave you, they didn't give you so that you could build strong empirical families. You were not given those tools. You were given tools to keep your power decentralized. So things that you were given and were told were normal, in most cases, were the things that were slowly killing you. It's normal to speak English. It's normal to eat 3 servings of 3 different kinds of meat every day. You know, drink. It's normal to drink 8 glasses of water out of the tap. You know, is normal to sit boys and girls in hard wooden seats or hard porcelain seats for 6 hours a day and make them learn the same exact things, you know, for 13 years. That's normal. You know, we could just kind of go through the list, putting chemicals in your body that your body doesn't even have the ability to naturally flush out, you know, but that just stay inside of your system and turn metallic and acidic is normal. You know, I mean, we could just kind of go through the list. So, um, just kind of keep in mind, you know, and like one of the things you said is that most, or rather some women don't want to share a mate. Well, you know, I love you, sis. But as you type that, Why didn't you just write some women don't want to share a mate? Why type most, or rather some women don't want to share a mate? I think you were trying to say most women don't want to share a mate, but you didn't want to take the responsibility of making such a broad, you didn't want to take the responsibility of making such a broad generalization. So then you said, or rather some. But the truth is you were typing, you weren't talking. You could have just erased most or rather and just typed some women don't want to share a mate. Think about that. I'm not saying that to rip you. Know, we have a great relationship, so I'm not saying it to rip you. I'm just saying it to think about. Sometimes that programming jumps up, but to even answer that, most or rather some women don't want to share a mate. Okay, okay, that's fine. If they don't want to share a mate, they don't have to share a mate. You know, sometimes we get too locked in to, can we do this? Can we do that? I get asked those questions a lot, you know, or people want justifications for their relationship styles. And I'm not an advocate of that. Even though I've studied it, you know, I could sit here and show you why it makes sense and why it works and how empires are built through big, large, blended, plural family and all. But you do what you feel like doing. You know, that's like trying to convince someone to give up their virginity, you know, or trying to convince someone, telling them how many children they should have or should not have. You know, that doesn't make sense. You know, you have to kind of do what works for you. So I'm not an advocate of any of that. I'm an advocate of living a natural life. That's what I'm an advocate of. And not consistently and constantly beating down what's primal and instinctual to you and what actually works. You know, that's what I'm an advocate of. But just to say, you know, and you're not saying that. I'm just expounding upon what it is that you're actually saying. So to say that most or rather some women don't want to share a mate, okay, they don't got to share a mate. That's cool. You know, they don't even have to have a mate if they don't want it, you know. And then you share, I don't want to share a mate. That's obvious. I could tell by the questioning, by the wording of the questions that came before. But I want a better understanding why men, that's really what you want to know, and why some women don't agree on having one mate. Our nature is different. You know, just you know, understand that our nature, the nature between men and women is vastly different. And we live in a society that seeks to unisexualize us. You know, so um, it's advantageous to have more than one mate for a man. Be honest with you. It's advantageous, not necessarily for the man, it's advantageous for the family and for community. But I mean, that's clear as day. The only time people say it's not is when it's like, well, you know, in this day and time where our mentality is we can't get along. So getting along with one person is hard enough. Well, it's just as hard as getting along with two people. It's just as hard as getting along with three people. In fact, honestly, a lot of times having more than one person makes things easier. It makes some things a lot easier in terms of your interpersonal relationships, and it makes some things harder, you know, but I tell you this, it makes more things easier than it does harder, but it deals with the character of the individual. Why is the reason a lot of times people will say, well, I don't want to do that. You know, it's the same reason, jealousy. No, I'll share certain things I ain't sharing. Well, I can tell you this just as a man, I've never been owned by a woman a day in my life. Wasn't even owned by my own mother who possessed the bush that I flew out of. No one owns me. So I'm sharing myself. You know, a woman doesn't own me and say, okay, here, you can, I'll share my man with you. See, that's that sick slavery thinking. We own each other. That's where the jealousy comes in. Jealousy comes from a sense of ownership, you see. So why don't some agree on it? Because some are talking about nature and some are talking about power controls. That's the reality of what it is, sis. Honestly, that's the reality of what it is. You know, many men who you speak to, and I'm gonna generalize and say many would like to be with more than one woman. But again, when you live in a society where the natural responses of manhood are suppressed because those natural responses would cause an uprising. Again, like, take the example that I shared so many times about the mentoress, who was the individual who was responsible for raping young men in the gymnasium in Greek culture. He would rape them so that way he would keep them submissive and docile to the dominant male culture. You see, well, it's the same thing that happens today. It's no different. There's so many different things. I mean, it happens literally, of course, but then there's so many different things that happen in this society and that are purposely implanted to beat the manhood out of us. Because who do you think is going to wage the uprising? Who do you think is really going to wage the effective insurrection? Who can really face might with might? It's the men, the alpha men, the real men, not the ones who are trying to legislate their freedom or use bureaucratic methods to gain liberty. But there's another aspect of this. So that has to be raped out of you. It has to be shamed out of you even. And yeah, there's certain things that increase your testosterone. And I'll tell you honestly, yeah, having more than one woman does increase your testosterone, just your overall feeling of good health, of balance, of within yourself as a man. So we have to constantly do things to keep him from feeling like himself and keep him from expressing what he really is feeling and what he really wants to say in order to keep him subdued. So yeah, there's going to be disagreements, but keep in mind again, when you have people disagreeing on more than one mate, there's different perspectives. Often they're not disagreeing on having more than one mate; they're disagreeing on culture. That's what it's really about. That's what they're really arguing: culture. Because keep this in mind that when the missionaries came to the continent, the first thing that they stripped the people of was not their gods. And it was not even their languages. The missionaries learned the local languages. They do that to this day. You can go on YouTube and look at that. You see all kind of Mormons and different missionaries there, and they're speaking Yoruba better than I ever could, speaking Tree and Igbo language, and they're speaking it like it ain't nothing. So, that wasn't so much the problem. The first thing they did, you can check this out. They stripped them of their family systems. They stripped them of their family structures. They introduced very extreme forms of patriarchy. That was introduced first, saying, well, listen, if you want to gain the advantages and the benefits of being a Christian with us, you have to get rid of your other wives, and you can keep your first wife as your primary. This is happening to this very day in Somalia. That's why you have so many sisters who come over from Somalia with their children. These are the second, third, fourth, and fifth wives who've been outed by these idiotic guys who have converted to Christianity, and other systems that has told them you have to get rid of your family, essentially. You see, so no, you're really speaking about a debate between culture, and ultimately it shouldn't even be a debate. I don't really have those polygyny one-on-one conversations anymore. I retired from that a long time ago. Like, and polygyny one-on-one conversations are, okay, well, if you can have more than one wife, then I want more than one husband. I don't even do that type of stupidness anymore. When I hear dumb responses like that, I'm out of it. We're so far beyond that at this point. At this point now, we're dealing with tactics and methods and different stratagems to make it happen properly. For those of us who know what it is, it's just like having one-on-one conversations about spirituality. How that something ain't gonna jump on you. Christianity is your roots. You grew up in the church. Like, we ain't having those conversations. We don't have time to keep going back to square one all the time. Or square -1, really. We don't have time for that. So, I'm not going to make it a Christian talk, but I thought it was a good question. Probably a question that a lot of people would like to ask. All right, I'm gonna bring someone in. Area code 813.
Hey,
You're on. Peace,
greetings,
brother.
Chief. Greetings, Chief.
Hey, how you doing?
Chief, man. How's everybody doing? All right, I'm well, man.
Good.
I'm energized from yesterday's show, man. It helped me kind of get moving again in the classes.
Oh, good,
I was
good.
stuck on module 3, and
Okay.
I think with the title, with the conversation that we're gonna have today about strategy and tactics, I thought it would be best if I share some of my findings
Mm-hmm.
for Ogun and my north node and south node. My south node is Ogun, my north node is Oshun.
Okay.
And I'm not going to get into Ogun, but I wanted to get into Heru Kuti and
Mm-hmm.
Hindi deity as in Mangala.
Okay.
So, with your permission, I would love to.
Sure. Share away, brother.
All right, cool. So, especially dealing with strategy, there's actually another part also with another Hindi deity that gave me a side note of Agni, the deity Agni. So I'll go into that last. But here's with Hiru Kuti,
Mm-hmm.
or otherwise known as Hiru Bahutet. The divine, he is a divine principle that protects us from injustices from others. The reap what you sow concept. An aggressive power, usually found in athletes, warriors, business executives, and etc. A form of Heru, the form of Heru that fights set to regain the throne. Other words, to control over one's life. It corresponds to the extreme surges of adrenaline that supports the aggressive sexual arousal and immune response. That was some of the notes that I took down for Heru Kuti, and I'll go on to this one. There was also some of the notes that this goes into Mangala, one of the Hindi, I want to say Shri or deity for Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Mangala is also known as Agaraka or Kuja. It's one of the 9 planets of the I guess the pantheon or the understanding of Navagrahas, which is 9 planets of the 9 planets of the solar system. Mangala is associated with strength, valor, and courage, protector of Dharma, which is righteousness, and life purpose. This gave me a reference to the conversation you had with the potter, and actually not just the potter, the knife that the potter holds. When something grows out of the pot, when the potter is designing the pot, and then there's something extending from the pot that's not supposed to be part of the pot, and the knife comes in and cuts it off, and once again, that will be a painful experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's also Mars or Mangala is the owner of Mesh and Vershek, and I needed in Vershek Rashi, which I need to do more research on those 2 names. Mangala represents drive and physical energy, self-confidence, ego, strength, anger, impulsiveness. The hero, I'm messing up on my own words. Hero and adventurous, and the hero, a hero Shri, which is a hero god, and adventurous nature. Mangala rules over blood, muscles, and bone marrow, which is pretty interesting when they said bone marrow, because then I started relating that with the Egun to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
There's another that will go. I'll do a little more research on that, but he's also associated with battle, war, and soldiers, and that was some of the notes that I took for that. He's also the sun, and I'm gonna do more research on this one too. The sun on Prithviya and Bhumi. So I'd have to go do some more diving into those the parents of Mangala. And the second part, which was this was the side note on my research that I found that it was pretty interesting, because I was going into it thinking that it was like an Ogun entity, or like an Ogun variation.
Mm-hmm.
But Agni, and I found this to be Shango. Agni is a fire deity, and it's one of the 5 inert, impermanent constitutes of space, water, air, and earth. Agni, right? He's considered to be the mouth of the gods, and that's what led me on to thinking about Shango. especially talking about the tongue and the mouth of the gods. And when these elements combined, Agni also holds a big thing in initiation, and I got to do a little bit more research on it.
Mm-hmm.
But Agni also has a little bit more information on like a big thing on initiation, since it's a fire element.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's combined with these impermanent constitutes, these basic elementals, it creates what we call 3D reality. So I just wanted to share that, man. I felt like
Sure.
it was like a good little thing to think about when we start talking about strategy and tactics. I even and just a last side note is, like, even after the show, I did a Facebook Live talking about strategy and
Okay.
tactics, and I got a good vibration off those two, that concept and the fluidity concept. So just wanted to share that with the family. You know what I'm saying? I thought it was fitting. So.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Thank you. Nah, thank you, brother. Thank you for contributing. I'm sure a lot of the fam got a lot out of that, and definitely, look forward to hearing it after you do a little, more of that research you're speaking about. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Give thanks, man. Thank you so much. Yeah. Cool.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah, Mangala. So Brother Anwar brought Mangala into the space. Of course, Bhumi and Vishnu as well. So give thanks for that. Whenever you give those, speak those names in that sense, you give those energies power to appear and to give you messages and to be present. And Mangala is, like I said, a lot of times when you're studying things, don't immediately make one thing. Oh, that's just Ogun. Oh, that's just Shango. Because there's relationships. There's a variation due to ethnic and cultural variations throughout the world. Mangala is like a cross between if I was to pick anything, probably Ogun and Shango, to be honest. You even see in many ways that Mangala comes forth in terms of the birth, like, being a child of Vishnu and Bhumi, or in some instances, he's a child of blood. He came forth out of Shiva's blood or Shiva's toil, Shiva's effort. So it just gives you an idea. Okay, this is an entity that comes forth out of work and ethic. Work and effort. Excuse me. So that by itself is important to kind of keep in mind. But yeah, there's variations, and the more variations you learn, the deeper you get. To be honest, the more variations you learn, the more it will tell you about the actual element and less about the archetype. Because remember, I did that show previously where I spoke about the laws of what bring the archetypes forth. So that's why you never want to get stuck on just studying the archetype and thinking like, okay, well, that's the end all be all. That's what it must be. That's what it has to be, because that's never the case. That's never the case. You want to study the laws that will bring that forth. And a lot of times what helps you is to learn about their birth, who their parents are, things like that will give you a better understanding of, where the ideas come from. I see there's been a little chess, mental chess going on inside of the chat room. I saw it earlier. Yeah, with Yahweh 177177, she made a statement, and I guess people were asking for clarification. But I'm gonna go. I saw a question from Sister Michelle, and then we'll deal with the topic in a minute. Sister Michelle says, Chief, why are women so attached to possess the male they seem to hate? Is it the desire to be like the slave master? Well, again, okay, I'll continue. It's the second part to the question. So she says, Chief, why are women so attached to possess the male they seem to hate? Is it the desire to be like the slave master? I would think modern women would have evolved towards a more Amazonian-like society if they hated men and have multiple male partners. Well, again, who are we talking about when we say women? Are we talking about adult females masquerading as women? Are we talking about indigenous women? Are we talking about women who are deeply entrenched or even birthed from Western society? You see, I need qualifications before I can answer that question, because I wouldn't make generalizations about all women, for me personally, in that sense. So like when we say why why are women attached to possess the male they seem to hate? Well, as soon as they try to possess another person, they're automatically going to have a problem. And is a desire to be like the slave master. So if you're speaking about in indigenous situations, remember, like I spoke about before, often that Willie Lynch programming is already there. So they desire to conquest and to conquer and to hunt down certain men because they're doing the work of their father, which is Willie Lynch, which is white supremacy racism, which is, the state. So they don't necessarily desire they desire to possess that person like cattle, because they're being used as agents by that system. And a lot of females don't like to hear that, because then they always come with, so you saying this is all our fault? It always comes down to that. You saying this is all our fault? But that's just a slick tactic not to be accountable for what the parts that are your fault. There's all kind of slick tactics that are taught to people in a sick society to dodge accountability. You can say, you trying to say this is my fault? Or you could say things like, well, if you said it a little bit differently, maybe I could receive what you're saying. That's game. Because ultimately, are you hearing the truth? Let's look at that. So, again, you need context. Like you said, I would think modern women would have evolved towards a more Amazonian-like society if they hated men and have multiple male partners. Well, we do live in an Amazonian society. We live in a feminized society. We live in a matriarchal society. Look at your urban community and tell me that's not Amazonian. Who holds more access to state and governmental power, which is the powers that everybody's afraid of, in urban communities? Is it men or women? We already live in an Amazonian society. That's why you hear so many men talking about it. Now it's starting to come out more. You go on YouTube, you listen to videos and stuff. There are men who are now thoroughly fed up with it now. It's a wicked experiment that, of course, went sour. And you can see it if you look in urban communities. Let's put the woman at the head of the household. Let's give her all the power. Even if something happens or they go to court, let's give her all the power. Let's completely humiliate him and strip him. Why? Castrate the man and you can rape the woman. So we're already there as far as that. And like when you say modern woman, I don't think that's a form of modernization, taking on an Amazonian mindset. I think that's a de-evolution. That's a sick sign of integration and integrating it to something that was dysfunctional and not realizing that someone was laughing at you. Someone was playing you out. That's what was happening. Like I said, I think I mentioned that before. It's almost like the Beyonce phenomenon. She's playing you for a fool. She's giving you all these single woman songs, meanwhile pregnant with twins and benefiting from the systems of patriarchy, but telling you the exact opposite. You're getting played for a fool. So yeah, like I said, I'd have to qualify that question in terms of exactly who you're talking about, but those are just some of the small points I would bring up. And Yahweh 177177, I guess, would spark the whole back and forth. You guys are kind of working out, or I'm gonna read some of it. She said, I believe that most alpha men really don't like women. These type of men only appreciate the physical aspects of a woman and not her mental and spiritual components. Barefoot and pregnant, that's all. And then Dietrich asked her, what makes you say that? Great question. Michelle then said, an alpha men do not want to like a woman. They want to enjoy a woman. As a woman wants to enjoy the covering of an alpha man, you might be referring to emotionally abused males. Then Sequoia asked her, are you using Chief's definition of what an alpha male is? Michelle then added that some have been abused by women in their childhood. So Anwar then said, I believe those men live by a westernized concept of manhood, the caveman and the club concept. And then Yahweh 177 says, experience makes me say this. Brothers sometimes unknowingly be wanting a woman to stay in a woman's so-called place like she is a child. And then Brother Anwar said, our new alpha man knows that the woman holds the power and the man holds the authority. Gina Lacey asked Yahweh 177, what type of man are you? Then Anwar says, this is not to attack you, were those experienced based on westernized thinking. Okay. And let me see. And then Yahweh 177 says, no man holds authority over me. I respect man, but power and authority in my life comes from, for me. And then Dietrich Tucker asked a good question, Yahweh 177, what culture does that? And let's see. Yahweh says, the personal culture of me is where my views come from. And I think at that point they realized that Yahweh 177 is a female and not a male. And then Lotus, let me see, Sequoia says, Yahweh 177, what do you mean by personal culture? Are you saying you're not a part of this, our new culture? Lotus Scholar says, Yahweh 177, so you came up with your own culture with its own history, language, beliefs, etc. All the things that form a culture, you created that. Is that what you were saying? Dietrich Tucker says, Yahweh 177, so is this how you plan to view women and relationships as your family structure, ? And what culture flag do you fly under? And what are the basic principles of your culture? Yahweh 177 says, yes, I am a student, but I am my own person. First, a non-new student and student of the world. Second, that's just me. I follow no man, woman, or an organization. So Anwar says, Yahweh 177, Anu focuses on the unity structure. Playing both roles confuses and disorientates the structures. He says, my apologies. I thought Yahweh 177 was a man. I'm resting from the conversation. Yahweh 177 says, I can still be myself and have unity with others. I will never lose myself to another. Zach Latimer then says, if Yahweh is a woman, then the statements made are even worse. Shaga Guru says, an alpha takes responsibility. Responsibility is based upon the gaps and needs found within a given environment. So I just read all of that. I shared it with everyone because I thought it was a good example of how to maybe get clarity. We spoke about that recently, how sometimes a person can make a statement that we may not agree with. And one of the best things to do is just to ask, what do you mean? Before we have an immediate guttural response. And if you notice, I read that because that's what was asked. As Anwar was speaking, I was glancing into the chat room, so I saw some of that conversation. I thought it would be good to share it. Now, Yahweh 177, I know you've called into the show before, a lot actually. When Kim was on the air, I recognized your name, and I know you're the one who always speaks about the seed of Shaitan, I know that's so you're dealing from that perspective and tells us that we're the people of the book and so forth and so on. So obviously maybe your perspective and your angle may be a little bit different than some of the other people coming forth. But I would say this, you guys handled that very well. You had a respectful back and forth and came to the conclusion, the sister shared that, my culture comes from me. And what I'm saying comes from my own observations. So just in that, it kind of makes you clear as to what's actually being said. And I'll start with the first sentence, then we'll go on to what we're talking about. I believe that most alpha men and most alpha men really don't like women. I believe that means you don't know. These type of men only see, and then she continued to speak as if she understood what an alpha is, but I already know she doesn't based on what was said. These type of men only appreciate the physical aspect of a woman and not her mental and spiritual components, barefoot and pregnant. That's all. So the question to ask there is, what do you think an alpha man is? And also keep in mind that she said, I believe that most alpha men really don't like women. So, I mean, she started it by letting you know that, well, this is my opinion. I really don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm just sharing my opinion, which is cool. Everybody's allowed to share their opinion, but then when you all asked for further clarity, you really didn't get any clarity if you look at it. Because after the clarity question, what you got was experience makes me say this. Brothers sometime unknowingly, because of course they're dumb, be wanting a woman to stay in a woman's so-called place. I guess there's a problem with that, people being in a place like she is a child. So again, you're obviously speaking about a specific type of person. But to say brothers sometimes unknowingly, that's a general statement. So just in those two things right there, you kind of get a sense of what's happening. No man holds it in your hand. No man holds authority over me. I respect man, but power and authority in my life comes from for me. So you're talking to a feminist. Yahweh 177177. I was breaking up. Okay, let me come and bring it back. Give me 1 second. I'm being told that I'm breaking up. Okay. Hopefully that fixed the breaking up that we were just having. If it did, just give me a heads up if it's okay, if everything's good to go now. But yeah. And I mean, I remember the sister calling in a couple times, so I know the I know some of her philosophy. Let's put it. Okay, thank you. Sounds better. So yeah, but I thought, I know you're gonna say you're not a feminist. I know you're gonna say you're a realist. Anything I say, sister, you're gonna say that I don't know what I'm talking about, because remember, no man holds authority over you. You've created your own culture. So when I said you're a feminist, it wasn't for you to get clarity on your positioning, because I've heard you on this show before. I've heard you before. Matter of fact, in Anwar, I remember one time him asking you to clarify something you were saying before, and you wouldn't clarify it. In fact, I don't think you could clarify it. So I already know what we're dealing with there with you. I know you one of those sisters that you're not trying to hear anything. I know that. So, and you know that. You know that about yourself. So that's not news. So I know if I say, yeah, you're dealing with a feminist, you're going to say, I'm not a feminist, I'm a realist. How could that be real if you're only speaking about what you've seen? So then, of course, I know your next statement is, well, I'm speaking about my reality. Then you wouldn't have said, brothers do this. You would have said, brothers that I've observed, brothers that I've experienced, which would give us more information about you, as opposed to speaking like it was a general thing about the world and the world consciousness. But of course, I know whatever I say, because you don't respect male authority, like you just said, you're not going to listen to what I have to say. I already know that. You're going to listen to what your Bible has to say, because I know you're a Bible reader, because I remember you quoting out of the Bible when you called here before. All right. So there's a lot there. There's a lot to take on there. And I'm not getting on you, anything like that, but if something's off, if something's wrong, I'm going to speak on it. What the statements you just said weren't even on. They were off. The statements you just said were off. You were asked for clarity. You didn't give clarity. So essentially you just stirred up the pot. And then when, people ask, okay, well, what exactly are you saying? Then you started making statements that people should have picked up on, revealed that, no, you're not going to learn. Mm-mm. If someone says, well, what culture does that come from? You say, my own culture. Okay. There's certain signs. Again, that's the thing about being a hunter. You got to be able to read the signs, man. Read the signs. Sometimes people can't see the signs immediately, and you'll start to engage in a certain kind of conversation, which will only wear you out, not realizing that it's not going to go anywhere. And this is an example of one of them. When you have someone, at least she has enough clarity to tell you that, oh, this is what I've observed, and this is coming from my culture. So you learn to still be loving within within that, you learn to say, oh, okay, pull back. So the only thing you could ask from that point is, well, you could ask the person to share more of their experience with you or more of their beliefs. But she kind of told you from the very beginning that this is a belief. And I'm sharing this because sometimes people will begin to debate something as if it's factual. But if a person is saying this is what I've observed and this is what I believe, they're already qualifying what they're saying as not being real, or at least not being universally real. They're letting you know this is just where I'm at with it right now. And so you want to gauge your responses based on that as well, which is a part of being tactful. So that's why I bring it up. I don't bring it up to get on the sister or anything like that. But I do remember you calling into the show before and saying some wild stuff that I'm sure you thought was completely on, but it was really off. And I remember one time Dietrich asked you for clarification. I remember one time Anwar asking you for clarification, and you were unable to give sensible clarification. But even now, like the things you're saying now, you're not giving sensible clarification. You're just saying they just want us barefoot and pregnant. Who are you talking about? They don't respect our spiritual and mental components. Just alphas just respect the body. You're not an alpha man. You're not an alpha man. You could ask an alpha man what they respect and what they value. But see, that's feminist language. I already know what that is. That's feminist language. Yeah, that's just feminist language. We ain't gonna get into that too much. But once you understand what you're talking to, then you know how to readjust. Just like if you're talking to somebody about spirituality and they're a Christian, you don't want to start a debate by forcing certain things down their throat that they're just not there. So you learn how to respectfully, peacefully, and lovingly, speak a language that you both can agree with, that you both can agree with, come to a similar place. Now, brother Achille, you say she has had a rough time with knucklehead dudes. How do you know she's had a rough time with knucklehead dudes? How do you know she's not the knucklehead female? See the programming? See where the programming goes every single time? Even when males talk, they are part of the programming. Because what did I tell you before in other shows? The black guy did it. No matter what, the black guy did it. Something's missing out of the garage. I'm missing a can of paint. The black guy did it. It's always you point to the black guy. How do you know that she's not the knucklehead? How do you know that? How do you know she's had a rough time? Females make bad decisions too. They're not all Snow White princesses sitting back laying and waiting for Prince Charming, and she thought it was Prince Charming, so she just gave her heart and she gave all her love, and he just did her so dirty and manipulated her. And blah, 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 blah. Come on, man. See, that's working with the premise that men are basically evil. That's a feminist premise. You got to learn to read between the lines. Read between the lines. I know now I was married to an alpha man for 25 years. No, you wasn't. Because if you were married to an alpha man for 25 years, this is what Yahweh 177 is saying. There's no way you were married to an alpha man for 25 years. Because if you were married to an alpha man for 25 years, you would be speaking more sense than you're speaking right now. I could tell no man has worked with you. You haven't been educated by a man. I can tell that. You've been educated by your Bible. So I'll finish what you're saying. And you said, I have alpha sons and grandsons. I doubt that. Experience has taught me to have my views. Right. Experience has taught you your feelings, not your man. You ain't been with no alpha man. My alpha man wouldn't even allow you to be talking right. And I've heard you on the phone going a little off before. I can tell where you come. Just like when you look at a child, you look at an unruly child, you can tell something about their parents by looking at the child. Well, a woman is a reflection of her man's culture. So you can tell something about the man by looking at the woman. You ain't been with no alpha. I know a lot of y'all use those conversations a lot, or you use those opportunities. A lot of times when I say things like that, like, I'll say, I could tell you never been around a real man. Oh, my father was a real man. You don't know what the heck was a real man is. I can tell. The evidence is right in front of our faces. You see, The evidence is right in front of our faces. It's like me being a total horrible brute to everyone around me, just being a total menace. And then me telling you that my mother was very loving and taught me honor and respect and care and concern for others. Something ain't adding up. Now, of course, we could take it the dumb way, and we could say, well, yeah, she may have taught you those things, but you may have decided to do your own thing. We could do that. But a tree is known by the fruit that it bears. A tree is known by see, you're going to see you saying an alpha man wouldn't allow me. See, you just verified my point. Well, that's cool. I'm glad that I verified your point. Right. So the point is that you're saying that a man is going to allow you to do something or not to do something. Yeah. That is the nature and the point that you will find in relationships. And obviously, that same nature and point that you're fighting against, and I'll repeat the statement again that she just said. She just put in the chat room. See, you saying an alpha man wouldn't allow me. See, you just verified my point. Well, sis, in that statement, you just verified my statement earlier that you are, in fact, a feminist. It's right there. I'm not going to keep going back and forth with you, though, because you're wrong and you don't know what you're talking about. So you have an opportunity to listen to this man right now and learn something, or you can come in here with your wayward points and keep running off. You do whatever you feel like doing. I know that you're not a young sister. I know that. Like you said, you got grandsons. So you can either learn, or you could come in here and keep saying a bunch of stuff that doesn't make any sense. Now, the beauty is, in being in this environment, you can be taught. That's why I'm here. I'm here to teach. But if you feel you know what you're talking about and you come in to pick and choose, then go ahead. What I'm doing is I'm teaching the other students how to save their energy and resources and mental acclimate. Because sometimes you'll be preaching to a stone brick and not realizing it. You see? So like now you're trying to debate me. And I mean, I could end this debate in about 5 seconds. But I mean, I actually really already ended whatever you were saying, but so you say you are wrong also. This is what she says now. You are wrong also and don't know what you were talking about either. Ashe. Well, that's not how you use Ashe. Oh, man. Of course. What else you going to? Of course you're going to say I'm wrong. I said that earlier. Whatever I say, you're going to say, no, that ain't it. You're a feminist. We're already there. So I'm only pointing this out for y'all benefit. Not because I feel like I need to prove anything to the sister. Because I've heard you speak on the phone, and I've seen your YouTube comments before, Yahweh. You're out there. And you're not out there in a way where some people think that they're out there and this just is a sign of their genius. It's not that. You're just out there. You're just out there. All right. So I'm going to save everybody's time and energy. And used to call on the phone a lot and wear people out with that nonsense. The seed of Shaitan. You're the seed, not even understanding exactly what you're saying. So, like you said, you're a member of the class, but the teacher's teaching and you don't want to be taught. So are you really a student? Yeah. So anyway, let's go back to strategy and tactics. We're going to talk about, I know, I'm a male chauvinist. You damn right I'm a male chauvinist, sister. Yahweh 177 just said, Chief, you are a male chauvinist. Absolutely. Now what? What you want to do? You want to stick around or you want to leave? Choice is on you. Now, if I'm wrong and you're right, and I'm a male chauvinist and I don't know what I'm talking about, you would be mentally insane to continue to learn under me. If I'm wrong and you have the ability to correct me so quickly on such a fundamental idea, if I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to something so fundamental, why would you even listen to this show? If what I just shared, I've been saying, I've been teaching this stuff. This ain't new, and you've been listening to the show. I know who you are. I know your name underneath the tag name. And yes, you are in the class, so when you bought it. But if I'm so confused and you got this thing so down pat because of what you believe and because of your experiences and because of what you've observed, then why would you even want to learn anything from me? What would I have to teach to you? Especially if everything is going to come from the perspective. No, don't tell her to leave, Daryl. No, don't tell her to leave. That's not what we do. I see Daryl and said, just leave. No, don't tell her to leave. This is her moment, her opportunity to think. If she can think through the demons and think through the insanity, then she can come up with something. But no, I don't just be kicking people out like that, but I'm going to be honest and truthful with you. You need to think about that. If everybody's so wrong, or if I'm so wrong, then how could I teach you anything? If you can defeat me and defeat my thinking on such a petty point, then I should not be worthy of being your teacher. In fact, maybe you should be my teacher. Maybe I need to hand the school over to you. Right. And see, look at everything you say. This is good. She said, I just repeated the same words you have spoken to me. You sin how you are making others feel. You're choosing to feel a certain way because of your arrogance. And just like you just said, I just repeated the same words you have spoken to me. Well, isn't that the basis of the feminist movement? Isn't it very reactionary? You want to be in my position. You want to be me. You want to be the man. So, of course, you're going to repeat whatever I said. Like you just typed. And I'll repeat what you just typed. Yahweh 177177. I just repeated the same words you have spoken to me. You see, well, you said you sin. I'm guessing you see how you are making others feel. I'm not making you feel anything. You're choosing to feel a certain way. That is your choice. Right now, I could be choosing to feel insulted. I could be choosing to have my manhood feel offended. But I'm not choosing any of that. Right now, I'm choosing love. By being very direct and honest with you, I'm choosing to love you. You choose your feelings, you choose your reactions. But just repeating back to me what I just say to you, that's the very essence of a feminist. And a woman who can't receive, considering that's the very base nature of your chemistry, is a woman with a problem. Isn't my job here as a positive energy, as the positive matrix on the earth, isn't my job to give and to send and to expand? And you as the contractive and negative matrix on the earth, isn't your job to receive? But whenever I say something to you, you just repeat it right back to me. And you say, I don't know what I'm talking. I give you a seed. I got my own seed. So you're producing your own sperm now. You got your own fertilization. So again, why be taught? Why be taught? Just think about that. Like I said, I'm not trying to beat up on you or anything like that. Now it says Hotep Peace, teach on this is your show. Of course, it's been my show. It's going to continue to be my show. You ain't dictating nothing. I'm dictating what the conversation is going to be today. I'm dictating the flow today. You see? But at no point are you receiving. So even in that, you still, well, this is your show. Teach on. This is your show. Now you want to give me orders and directives. I'm only pointing this out because you all need to learn this. Because this is a part of some of the strategies and tactics of Willie Lynchism. There's a consistent undermining. All right, now she's going off on me. Chief, you are so full of yourself. Humility is what you really need. Right? Okay. Because I'm so full of myself, I need to humble myself to you. That's part of the tactic. See, that's a usual response right there. You're arrogant. She's basically saying you're an uppity nigger. That's what she's basically saying. How dare you teach me something? How dare you take a man's position? And again, if I'm so full of myself and humility is what I really need, first of all, I don't know how I would have learned the things that I've learned if I was full of myself, because the people who I studied under didn't teach those who were full of themselves. But I guess maybe I became full of myself after I was taught. Maybe I faked the humility. I faked them out because they were so easy to convince. And then they gave me the jewels, and then I became arrogant as a result. And I became full of myself, and I didn't become humble. Hmm. Okay. I taught a show on humility. You might want to check it out. It's my dear sister. You might want to check that show out. Some might say, some on the planet might say that it's a humble thing to come down to have certain conversations about things that you've learned a very long time ago, to actually take a step backwards, or to take a lot of step backwards and look at something that happened in the chat room, and before this craziness that ensues again, to step in and to bring some clarity. Some would say that's humble, because I guess if I was really full of myself, now it's just what I'm saying, I could be wrong, because like you said, I'm wrong too. If I was really full of myself, I would have kind of not been aware of what was going on around me or even in the chat room, and I would have just continued on with whatever topic I wanted to talk about today, because I'm so full of myself. Because the statements you said they weren't geared towards me. So I could have just ignored them. I could have not used it as a teaching moment to come down and get down on one knee and say, hold on, wait a minute. This is what's going on. I could have just kept talking about what I want to talk about, because wouldn't that be pretty arrogant? You know, like people who just listen just long enough to get out what they want to say next. But I don't know. Like you said, I'm full of myself and I need to humble up. I'm sure there's a lot of people who would agree with you. I'm positive there's a lot of people who would agree with you. So maybe you're right. Maybe I do need to not be so full of myself anymore. And I need to humble up a little bit, and you know, I need to learn to respect the authority that's in you, because somehow I guess I'm not respecting you. I'm not seeing your source. I'm not speaking to what you could be, and I'm not calling out the things that are a part of you that are not really a part of you right now. The things that you've taken on that are a part of the sickness. I guess I'm not doing that right now. I guess I'm not responding in a way to you that is speaking to your best part and not your lowest part. But she says, I'm still a good teacher, and that's why I gave you my $99. We're going to get you on a reality TV show. That's what we're going to do, sister. We're going to get you on a reality TV show. I guess I'm worth $99. I'm a $99 teacher, but outside of that, I need to humble up. So I only need to be as full of myself as far as $99 will take me. And then don't get to that $100 mark. Don't start getting full of yourself and talking like a $100 teacher or $101 teacher. You stay in that $99 range. I love you all. I really do. I know I don't say it enough, but I do love you. I sincerely do. You know, oh man, I just want to, you know what I just want? I just want to have a snowball fight with some of y'all. A hardcore snowball fight. That's all I need. You know, a co-ed snowball fight. Then we can go inside and drink some nice chamomile tea and doze off listening to some music or watching some movies, you know. But I need that fade. I need that snowball fight fade. I need that snowball fight. But all right, sis, I won't overextend myself beyond the $99. I'll stay in my place. All right, so let's get into. Oh man, my people. You know I love y'all because only y'all can do stuff like this. Only y'all could do stuff like this. Only y'all could say stuff so crazy. Okay. So now, but we're gonna get it together. You know, I can laugh and joke about it because my authority allows me to see you where you're going, not where you're at. All right, so I listen to all the nonsense. Just like Anwar just called in, stumbling all over his stuff. Like he said, I wrote it in chicken scratch. But I know where he's going with it. I'm not gonna say I didn't cut him and say, "Oh, what you talking? Okay, you don't even know. You ain't even pronouncing the words right." Because I know where he's going. You know, he gonna come back like a firestorm with this stuff. You know, so that's what you got to kind of look at people at. That's how you see the village. You know, don't look at what just is right now. That's when you're too caught up in the flesh. You know, you're too caught up in the material world. The material world is moving so slow. You got to extend that thought process forward, that thought energy forward. See where people are going with it. People are here because they're sick, not because they're all knowing. So, you know, sometimes people think, "Oh, you getting on me, Chief. You getting on me, Chief." Why would I get on a sick person? That would be cruel. And because I say you're sick doesn't mean I'm getting on you. I'm making an intelligent observation. You're coming into this environment to get some healing because you live in a society that has made you sick. And there's a part about you that isn't so sick that realizes you need some help. That's all. You realize you need some help. And there's different kinds of help. And let me tell you something. As I've said before, I'm going to say it again. If you came to me for help, chances are you already had help before. You wasn't listening. Now you don't went through all the soft walls, and now you done hit the brick wall, or better yet, the iron wall. You done hit the iron wall. That's what I should call this show. Forget all that enlightenment, transformation. Iron wall. That needs to be the new name of the show. But you done hit the iron wall now, because why else would your ancestors bring you to this space? Why else would your ancestors bring you to a space where you have to listen to someone as direct and sometimes as quote unquote hurtful as me? Think about that for a second. You're coming to your last stops. Because some didn't have to go through all this. Some just got it through finding a pamphlet on the ground. You know, found themselves a little Bushido code, samurai code, and read that and said, I could live by this. And they got themselves together like that. Some just started eating right, or some just overheard a conversation, or took an Africana class in college and woke up that way. Some got it much easier. But some of y'all are real hard-headed. You're real hard-headed. So your ancestors said, all right, you know who we got to call, right? And then the other Egun, not him. No, don't even say his name. Not him. I'm just saying, come on, we tried everything else. We've been pulling them this way, pulling them that way. Listen, that guy's a loose cannon. I don't like his methods. I don't like his protocol. He's disrespectful. He talks about orgies. No, not him. Don't you say it. Don't you. And then when Egun says, Yuya, you know we're gonna have to orchestrate and send him over to Yuya. I told you don't say his freaking name up here anymore. Oh man. And they thought about it, had the power, and said, you know what? Well, let's try one more thing. Then you join some religion or something, or what you do is you find some other Bible out. You get ripped off. They say, okay, well, we're going to go to Baba so-and-so or Iya so-and-so, but if it don't work out, I got this guy. I already set up the path and connected the dots to figure out how to orchestrate to get this person over to Yuya. And you better do it now, because, you know, a man got a mouth on him. Somebody probably going to pop him in his head one day. He'll be up here with us. So we need to make something happen. And the next thing you know, you offend the Iya or the Baba because you know every doggone thing. It doesn't work out over there. And because they were soft, they didn't know how to check you in the beginning. They didn't know how to set the precedents. They didn't know how to check you in the beginning. Then your craziness became the dysfunction of the Ile. And they said, all right, you got to go. You got to get out of here. Now you face the iron wall. You face the iron wall. I'm the last stop, man. I'm the last one of the, I say maybe the second to the last, because after me is probably some type of bodily injury, car accident, something like that. I'm like the second to last station on the stop. I'm the one when you've been sleeping on a train all day, you know, the whole ride, and the conductor comes through and starts tapping people on the shoulder, say, you know, one more stop. And you wake up and say, oh. That's the stop that I am. And you get off. You realize you should have got off way further down, but you fell asleep. You wasn't listening. So now you got to get off at the iron wall. And then you come to the metallic man who's sitting at the booth, and you say, "Oh, sir, I need to be at this particular stop, but I fell asleep, so I'm just gonna get on a return." And then the guy says, "No, you ain't gonna get no return ticket. You're gonna pay for a return ticket, and now you're gonna have to pay a full fare for the whole trip." "But sir, that's not fair. I just fell asleep." "Well, you shouldn't have fallen asleep. People were trying to wake you up before. That's your fault." You see? I hear him breaking up on Blog Talk. I don't know. I'm sorry about that. I don't know how to fix that because Blog Talk does its own thing. But I'm telling you, man, that's how it goes. This is the last stop. So you're gonna hear a lot of things that you've heard before, didn't want to hear, and you're gonna hear it in a way where it's gonna be unbending. That's the essentialness of manhood, man. Unbending, and it goes down from there. The essentialness of womanhood is receptive. There's strength in softness. There's strength in receptivity. You don't believe me? Look at the art of Tai Chi. Look at Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee wasn't a great fighter because he was able to just whip people apart. He was so massive. He's a little guy. Like he said, be like water. Be fluid like water. Water takes the shape of whatever container you put it in. That's what makes it so powerful. Muhammad Ali, the same thing. He wasn't no big, humongous guy. He had fluidity. He had movement. You see? So I'm just just trying to put you up on that, man. I know you feel like, all this time you ain't talk about strategy. I am talking about strategy and tactics. Why do you think I did that little divergent? I'm teaching you how to be tactful. Now, the sister may hate me now. She may not want to talk to me, or she may come back later or not call me. It don't matter. What needed to be said was said. That's the bottom line. Sometimes we're so, people who are really full of themselves, I guess I'm one of them based on the sister's diagnosis, but usually people who are really full of themselves, they have a hero complex where they feel like you have to get it from them and you have to get it now. You see, so they'll start to sacrifice and violate all of their own personal boundaries in order to make sure the person gets it right here and now. You see, that's not the way you want to look at this thing. You may say something that may chase somebody away and chase them into the arms of someone else who's going to be there, maybe going to really lead them to their destination. But you're just a stepping stone to say, wait a minute, can't do that here. It's almost like playing ping pong. Not ping pong, ping ball, like a pinball machine. I don't even really have those too much anymore. But, you hit certain things and it blocks off the ball from going certain places. Ultimately so it can get to its goal. So sometimes all you are is just a person that doesn't let them get through the door. No, we're not going to get through the door of feminism. You ain't getting through that door over here. Try something else. Try another door. You're not going to get through the door of this, that. Nah, try another one. And then they may say, well, I'm out of here then because you didn't let me in through the doors. Okay. Go on then. Go on with your funky self. And then hopefully everybody else will have the same thing to the person that actually goes through the door that they're supposed to go through. And a lot of people are not going to appreciate you as a result. They're not going to like it. Many of us had teachers in school like that didn't let us get away with certain things, even though maybe some of the other teachers did, but they just wouldn't. And because they didn't let us get away with certain things, maybe we had to bring our overall grade point average up, or we ended up in summer school or getting left back because they said, nah, I'm not, this is not going to be the linchpin that causes your downfall. Somebody has to create a standard. Somebody has to maintain a standard for you if they truly love you. So stratagem is the long-term goal. Okay? That's how I want you to look at it. Now, a lot of times when we're thinking about strategy and we think about tactics, unfortunately, I told you, we're still talking about the same thing now. I told you we didn't diverge. You think we diverged, but we didn't diverge. All right? A lot of times when we're speaking about strategy and tactics, sadly, people tend to use them interchangeably. And I brought them up yesterday, and I'm bringing them up again today because I didn't really expound on it too much yesterday. And I thought that it would be a good thing because, like I said, I always try to see. Now, y'all should stop making fun of the whole shaitan concept. See what y'all doing? That's messed up. Anwar and Michelle. I'm gonna call the names out. Call their names out. I see what y'all doing in that chat room. You know. So remember, we all here to learn. And all of y'all got something broken in you. Every last one of you. That sister's no different. Everybody got something broken in them. All right. That's why it's important to know how to present your ideas in a way. You know, it's important not to speak a lot of times so empirically, especially if you're not sure about all the words that you're saying. There's a lot of topics that I leave off the table because I'm still studying them, and it would be guesswork and I don't want to do that. Now, you may not know them because you ain't studying them, so I may talk about them and it sounds like real talk, but it ain't real because I'm not that tight on it. I only speak about things I'm really, really tight on. You know, that's a huge responsibility when you teach. You ain't got to apologize to me, Michelle. You wasn't make fun of me. So, you know, that's a huge responsibility when you finally come into the priesthood. And some people, you know, are concerned about that. I know I was concerned when I first started. Like, what if I say something to somebody that messes up their life? That was always my thing. Because even as a young person, even when I would talk, I didn't talk much, but when I did, everybody would listen. And to the point that I stopped talking because I didn't like the feeling. You know, I would say things like, yo, go punch that boy in the face. And the guy would just go punch the kid in the face. You talking about element, you're on the playground. And that used to kind of mess with me a little bit, that level of responsibility. And sometimes when you're coming into a teaching environment, it's the same thing. You know, you got to be careful with what you're saying, and you got to really flow with spirit. You know, you can't be so full of yourself, because if you're full of yourself, you're full of ego, and you're going to end up saying things based on your own experience and history that's going to damage people. You know, you got to say things from a timeless place. You got to say things from the spirit. And I guess I need to work on that because the sister told me I'm full of myself. So that's one of the things I'm going to tighten up. I'm going to learn to stop being so full of myself. So anyway, there's a quote that says, strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. Again, I'll say it again slower. Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. And if you ever, probably, I'm assuming if you look up the term or whatever, people will often tell you that Sun Tzu said it. You know, Sun Tzu is the author of The Art of War. In fact, it's not actually, Sun Tzu didn't actually say that. Just so you know, so it's not actually in The Art of War. But you know, when you have certain phrases and things like that, and you attribute it to these ancient, you know, strategists from years ago, you know, Sun Tzu, you're talking 2,500 years ago, then it sounds deep. You know, Confucius once said, you don't know what Confucius said. So we could just add anything in there, you know, you could add anything in there, you know. But no, it wasn't actually something that Sun Tzu said, but parathenically, if you read his work, the concept and the idea is there. The idea of how we view strategy as opposed to, or in conjunction to, how we view tactics, and you know, they're not necessarily antonyms of one another, and they're not necessarily synonyms in that sense, but they work hand in hand. They complement each other. And like I said, the phrase that's often said is strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. You see, so ultimately, when you're looking at the difference between strategy and tactics, strategies are what you utilize to determine what your long-term goals are. So, for instance, if we say that we're working towards building strong communities and strong families, right? Then we'll say, okay, well, what's the strategy that we're going to use to build strong communities and strong families? Because I say the ultimate goal where we're trying to get to is a strong community, right? So then the strategy we may use is to build strong families. Let's use it like that, right? Because that's really, building a family is really a subset of building a community. Okay, so we want to build a community. So we say, okay, let's build a family. That's the strategy. Well, how are we going to build families, right? So there's many different tactics that we may use, which would be like the smaller steps towards actually achieving the goal. Okay, so we'll have specific plans that we'll put forth. We'll determine what kind of resources we need to get that done, and we'll have different things, different initiatives that we'll take on in order to build families, which is the strategy to lead us to the ultimate goal of community building. So if you look at it, it's like a 3-part situation there, right? It's 3-part. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is several reasons, but sometimes, and especially when I'm working with people and they're having a little bit of trouble, sometimes people have trouble putting their eye on the bigger picture items, and if we were to look at, I'm gonna give you an example too. You want to look at the relationship between men and women, even though I'm a male chauvinist, right? Even though I'm a male chauvinist, because I gotta take whatever y'all call me is that's what I am. Men really fall into the lane of strategy. Women fall into the lane of tactics. Okay, just because of the different way we're wired in terms of our thinking. Men usually are long-term thinkers. Women are not really that great at long-term thinking generally. Generally, women are not that great at long-term thinking, but they're really good with the immediate cyclical items. Like a guy will get an apartment and sleep on a mattress with no sheets. He'll do that for 2-3 years because he's like, oh, I'm saving up for a house. But the woman will come in and say, well, wait a minute, but let's at least make the place you're living currently a home, because you probably not even resting peacefully when you come home at night. So therefore, you don't even have the focus or the energy to put your money together like you would want to get that house, because you haven't handled your immediate situations. You taking showers with dishwashing, soap, things like that. And, you don't even buy toilet paper. You just grab a handful of napkins out of fast food restaurants and use that. So you're not even living in a way where you're preparing yourself and making yourself ready, even on a microcosmic level, to be a homeowner or a house owner, we'll say, because you're not currently a homeowner. You living in a flop house, So just to give you a small, real easy example of that, right? Where different things will fall in. So a lot of times it's the tactics that define what those smaller steps are in order to achieve the strategy. And the strategy is what we utilize to achieve the ultimate end or the ultimate goal, right? So just in given that example of, like I said, okay, we want to build a community, or we want to have a community. That's really what it would be, because building the community would still be a part of a strategy. So the having or the being would be the goal. All right. We want to be members of a community. Well, how do we do that? Strategy. We got to build families. Well, how do we build families? And you might have multiple strategies for one particular goal, by the way. Well, we got to build an economic base. How do we do that? Right. So it trickles down. Now, a lot of times when we're doing certain work, whether it be family work inside of your family, or work inside of a community or an organization, a lot of times the trouble we have is differentiating between the different moments and the different levels of what it is that we need to map out. Like we get stuck on maybe just the strategy. And we preach a lot of times strategy real heavy. If you look at different conscious speakers and just different people who speak, I'm not gonna call out any name. I'm not trying to make fun of anybody or anything, but sometimes we just hear about we got to do this and we got to do that and we got to do that and we got to do that, blah, 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 blah. And then you got other people where all they'll speak about is the goal, the end place that we're going. We're gonna be free and we're gonna be this and we're gonna be that and we're gonna be that, right? And unfortunately, sadly enough, what gets left out so often is tactics. Tactics is like the mistreated stepchild. Go clean up. We going to the ball. It's that type of thing. People don't really speak about the tactics so much. Well, how are we going to get the strategy completed? Some people think you go right from strategy to destination, and that never works, especially if you don't have intellect surrounding the strategy. You see, the tactics are what you use to gather the resources in order to determine how you can get the strategy done. You know, the tactics represent the subset of thinking that goes inside of the strategy. You know, and tactics are always the short-term things. So a lot of times when you're trying to get certain things done, your tactics will change a lot. Now, let me tell you something. A man who's building, I have experienced this personally, and I've spoken to other men who've had similar, you know, instances and not really known how to confront it. They've had certain complaints from their women who was like, you know, uh, every week we doing something different. I've heard that more than one time. You know, one week we doing this, next week we doing that. And sometimes if you don't preface and kind of prepare your family to understand that, listen, we're moving like a military, we're moving like a business, we're moving like an organization. So that means we're still maintaining the same strategy. In fact, this family itself is a part of my strategy. Like I always tell sisters who I deal with, you even being here is a part of my strategy. You ain't here because I think you cute or I got butterflies in my stomach. I could let those pass. You're here because you work towards the overall strategy, which will lead us to the overall mission and end game. So you are an integral part of the solution. If you're here, you're a part of the solution. If you start to act like anything else, then we have to extract you. And that's a shifting or a changing of strategy. A changing of tactic. You see, so there's different and there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we hear the word tactic and it almost like if somebody says, "Oh, you're crafty something." We associate that with sneaky, but it's not. You know, to be tactful or to be tactile is to touch things. It's to touch things. You see, so it's the more concrete subset of actions that feed into the actual strategy. And the strategy is all about how we're going to get to our destination, you know, how we're going to move to our destination. So, you know, I'll give you another example. You may say, okay, maybe you have high blood pressure, or, you know, you got high blood sugar, or you have maybe a certain health issue. And you say, okay, you know, by this time, what are we in? April. By this time, April of next year, I am going to have my blood pressure at this level, or have my blood sugar at this level, or maybe I want to, you know, take off 15, 20 pounds. I'm going to be 20 pounds lighter, right? So then you'll say, okay, well, how am I going to be, you know, that's the ultimate B. That's where we're landing at. That's where we want to be. And then you'll say, okay, well, what's the strategy? I'm going to eat better. I'm going to work out. Right? Let's just say if that's it. Of course, there's other strategies. You can be, you know, be less stressful and, you know, things like that. So then we'll say, okay, I'm going to eat better. I'm going to work out. Well, how are you going to eat better and you're going to work out? Okay, well, I'll pick a day instead of buying lunch at work all the time. I'll pick a day, maybe Sunday or Saturday, where I'll cook big pots of food, or maybe I'll hire a personal chef. Sister Allison McCoy, by the way, who oftentimes comes into the chat and whatnot. She's a personal chef. She's a caterer, a baker, and a personal chef. Allison McCoy, all right? I'll try to, if I can find it real quick while I'm talking, get her Instagram for you all. Anyone who needs any type of catering services or professional chefery, you should reach out to the sister, all right? So anyway, back to what I was saying. You know, I'm all about businesses. So I like, if somebody's doing something, I like to promote it, man. You know, I like to put it out there because that's a part of community building. You know, we have to support each other and we have to reward each other, and word of mouth is a powerful thing, man. It's a powerful thing. You know, sometimes we're so jealous because we're not reaching our marks. We don't want to promote anybody else. We don't want to say, well, this person, you know, we feel like if someone gets something over us, then they're over us. You know, no, we move together as a collective, you know. But either way, yeah. So, like I said, so you have this idea, I want to lose some weight, you know, get some of my numbers right in terms of my blood or my pressure, things like that. So then you'll say, okay, well, my strategy is to exercise and to eat better. And then my tactic may be, I'm going to maybe get a home gym, start working out at home, come up with a schedule where I can work out certain time. I'll prepare my meals certain time. I may hire a personal chef. I may get myself a nutritionist, you know, and then you may say, well, do I have the money for the chef and nutritionist? Okay, so now I got to develop different tactics and different ways in order to generate the money, if I need extra money, let's say, to hire those people and so forth and so on. So you're breaking it down into smaller initiatives, which may be short-term initiatives, because you may say, okay, like right now is June, so in the Northeast it's starting to warm up. It's like 80 degrees to get today, right? So you might say, okay, well, I'm going to work out outside. I'm going to run. You know, I'm going to try to get on this cardio program. Maybe I'll do some calisthenics, stuff that I can do without a gym membership that will kind of start to just strengthen my body overall, some compound movements, some push-ups, maybe pull-ups, dips, you know, or just some stretching. Maybe I'm just going to run and stretch, right? So that's a tactic, but you might say, okay, I'm only going to do that till, let's say, September, to when the weather starts changing, starts getting cold again, right? So then you say, okay, then after September, my tactic will change, and maybe I'll join the gym there, or I may buy some home equipment, whatever it is, but maybe I'm going to bring it indoors. That's a different tactic. Has the strategy changed? No. Same strategy, different tactic. You see, so, and has the overall goal changed? Nope. Still by, April of 2018, I'm trying to get my numbers right, get, you know, boom, 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 get my health a little bit better. So a lot of times people don't understand that, there's so many different tactics that are involved in the overall strategies of what we're trying to do. Like the strategy may be, I want to build a family. And sometimes one of the tactics that you have to do in terms of building a family is building wealth, you know, in order to get the family. Well, to build wealth, let's say if you have your own business, you might say, well, I have to learn how to brand myself. So building a brand feeds into building wealth, which feeds into building a family, which feeds into my ultimate destination of having a strong community. And sometimes it's very difficult, you know, depending on how your mind works, you know. I can definitely say as a man that I've been in a lot of situations where people have said, okay, tell me the plan. And I'm like, no, I don't feel like doing that because there's so many different parts to it. There's so many different subsets. Just like when I do these segments, a lot of times people will say afterwards, like I'm saying months after, oh, I see what you were doing. Everything's strung into each other. Yeah. But if I had to explain to you what I mean, I could do it, but I don't feel like it. If I had to explain it, it would take a long time. And yeah, if I had to, of course I could. I'd have to explain, well, this is why we have free classes, why I have free spells and stuff on Sedula House. This is why we have like 10 different websites. There's a reason for that. You know, it's not just because we want website happy. You know, this is why we have like 5 or 6 different YouTube channels. It's not because we're disorganized and sloppy. It's because of this and because of that. This is why I speak about relationships so much. This is why I take so many trips to the continent. This is why I still do rites of passage with young people. You know, everything is feeding. It's all about a strategy, and I'm a consummate schemer. I remember that came out the very first reading that I ever got. I remember that was said to me, "You're always scheming," and it was a brother who did the reading. I looked at him. Wait, what? No, was that? That might be my second reading. But I remember looking at the brother and I wanted to, it's breaking up. I see today it's breaking up on both sides a little bit, y'all. You know, everyone. Let's give you a heads up. So I remember when the brother said it to me, I'm going to adjust something real quick, y'all. Give me a second. Try to help our sound out a little bit if I can. Okay. So when the brother said it to me, I remember I was okay with what he said, but I was wondering if he was okay with it. You know, like when he said it to me, if he thought I was going to take it a certain way. But I got what he was saying, you know, because my youth are like that. My youth are always scheming and sitting back and, you know, I got a plan. That's their favorite. I got a plan, Baba. I got a plan. You know, we can make money. We can go down to the city, down to the garment district, and buy a whole bunch of fake belts, and we can come back and we can sell them. That, you know, always got all these different schemes and stuff. So I get what was being said is constant strategizing. the boys and girls alike, they're both the same. They're always sitting there staring at a blank wall, thinking, what you thinking about? Just trying to figure out how to da 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 da. Always maneuvering, playing chess in a sense. So it was cool, right? So that this a lot of times, as said within the Dune series, plans within plans, or like wheels spinning inside of wheels. And these are the different plans and the strategies that exist inside the strategies, and there's tactics that exist inside of those strategies. And then a lot of times there's multiple ones. So you got multiple wheels spinning inside of multiple wheels, handling different things, all to end up to a specific goal, kind of similar to your chakra system, all to try to draw you to a specific goal. So, again, the idea of utilizing strategy and utilizing tactics is important to understand that they really do go hand in hand. With your tactics, a lot of times you're going to be looking at how you're going to be maneuvering, how you're going to be organizing. And when you're looking at your strategy, you're going to be looking at things like how you may be leading or where you're leading people to. So you're looking at that long-term piece in terms of that sense. And again, with the tactics, you're looking at your short term. And these are things that you all need to do, especially when you're family planning, when you're writing mission statements for your family. As I always tell you all to do, write mission statements for your family. It's very important. Take these things, keep these things in mind. What's my ultimate goal? And sometimes I'm gonna tell you what's easier. Sometimes, and I understand it's hard, we're very distracted. In this culture, we're hyper stimulated, so it's kind of hard sometimes to put your head to one thing. I know that, so sometimes I tell you it's easier to work backwards and then come forward. So speak about where you want to be ultimately. That's the ultimate destination. Start from your destination and go backward. And it's perfectly fine. I read books that way, from back to front. I've been doing this as a little boy. I ain't waiting. You don't be building up no suspense in me. I don't be trying to play, I manipulate my feelings. So I read it from back to front. I want to know the ending now. Then I, so a lot of times we can plan that way, because again, the forces and the energies that we're tapping into are not bound by time. You see, so you can visualize, which makes it more powerful anyway, visualize the ultimate destiny. Start there and then say, okay, what is the strategy for me to get to the destination? See, that's really taking a step back, because that strategy, if you were looking at a linear timeline, strategy sits behind the destiny. The destination, excuse me. And then what sits underneath that or behind that would be the tactics. How am I going to get that strategy to come about? So even like, let's say with community building, right? If you think about it, I guess for some may look at the idea of building a strong community as a noble destination, and it absolutely it is. But if you really look at the essence of community building or being within the community, that's just a vehicle. That's never the destination. But sometimes we'll look, so really, honestly, just like family building is a stratagem for community building is a stratagem for freedom. And like I've said often to you all, freedom is a place. Freedom is a place. So, when you look at it from that sense, and in all honesty, sometimes it works better for you, especially if you might be a little distracted in your life, to go from the destination and then come back. And you probably got to write it down. You may find that there's a lot of different intricate parts, especially to the tactics. And again, tactics usually may be a little bit more time sensitive. I'm going to do this for a while. Just like let's say if building a family is a part of your tactic, let's just say, to get something else done. Well, a family is constantly morphing and changing because everybody's getting older. And even their ability to add on to the family changes as the older we get. So essentially, you would see that that's a mutable tactic. Now, it could also be strategies change too. Strategies don't necessarily have to be static. They could be dynamic, but you may find that just through the passage of time and as things grow and change and so forth, that your stratagems may change, or your tactics may change. And there's different intelligences that are involved in executing each one. Let me be very clear on that. There is an intelligence that's involved when you have to execute strategy, and there's a certain intelligence that's involved when you have to execute, your tactical maneuvers. You can say it like that. A lot of times with strategy, you're looking at trends. Okay. So like when we were speaking yesterday about relationships, and I said, well, sometimes um we have to be a bit more sensitive to. Remember, I said that the water runs across, it changes its course based upon the ground that it flows upon. So in that sense, you're learning a lot of times you're learning your strategy. You're learning how to spot trends and things like that. So like sometimes, even now, sometimes I speak to people and they want to get into more conscious events. Like I have people say, oh, I want to throw this, a holistic fair or a natural hair thing and this and that and that. And they're talking about printing up flyers. And I'll explain to them like, no, nobody, that doesn't work anymore. We're done with flyers, which is a great thing. We deal with more non-tangible mediums, when we want to get the word out for certain things. But I know certain people still think it's about printing up flyers and putting them on the windshields and putting them in barbershops and places like that, and hoping that a person takes the flyer and then shows up to your event. Now, certainly some of that still does work, but essentially you don't need any of that. People have done some amazing organizing just through social media, right? So you start to develop a strategy. You may have a marketing strategy, and you'll look at the trends and how people, in the psychology of the people, or how marketing is done, or how people are receiving things and people are functioning regularly, to determine the best way to do things. Your strategy may even involve, you may say, well, listen, gas prices are high. People are taking public transportation more. So let me see if we can get some billboards inside of the subway system, or if we can get some bus billboards, or even if we're going to print out cards, let's distribute them, in the subways or something, depending, again, and I'm giving very loose examples, right? So you would really be looking more for how the long-term plans that you may put in place, how they may potentially impact the overall movement towards your destination. So, and you're developing fallback plans as well. So you're developing plan A's and plan B's, or stratagem A's and stratagem B's, which is a lot of times is one of the most important parts of strategic planning. That's one of the most important parts of your strategic planning, is having your ability to diverge. If we need to go this way, if we need to go left, or we need to go right. Now, you may not do so much of that in terms of your tactical planning. And in your tactical planning, you're dealing with the now time. So when you're saying, okay, well, you may take immediate inventory of resources, or immediate inventory of the conditions that you're in right now, and determine how you can move. Like, so let's say if we got to walk from point A to point B, part of your tactical planning may be how much water we're going to carry, what kind of shoes we're going to wear, things like that. And again, I'm making this very simple, just so that everyone can take it real quick, have it by time we're done today, and then apply it tonight. It doesn't have to be necessarily overly complicated in that sense. We can always get into things a little bit later. But you're basically looking at the resources that may be available to you, or plotting what's currently in front of you, so that you can achieve the overall stratagem with quality. See, that's the key. A lot of times, sometimes we don't realize that our tactics have to produce quality. You see, sometimes when we're full of ourselves, we may be focused on maybe the argument or the battle, and not really looking at how the quality of the battle will affect the overall victory of the war. Now, when we're really ego-based, that happens a lot. We lose sight of the overall mission. You even have in your sacred nine position divination, there's a positioning where I speak about that in the book, Grasping the Root of Divine Power, where everything just becomes about the fight. You're butting heads now, and you're losing perspective on what the overall and far-reaching goal is. You see, so that's a common thing that happens sometimes when from a tactical perspective, there's not a straight line from the authority of the stratagem and the authority of the stratagem being the actual destination and goal, because everybody wants to make up their own thing. And you find that level of I'm gonna do my own thing more at the tactical level. Even if you watch some war movies, a lot of times you'll find, and that's why the quote yesterday spoke about the responsibility of the individual soldier, right? But you find a lot of times in even war films, for those of you who like to watch those, sometimes getting the individual soldier to move in a certain way or to do things a certain way is the hardest thing. Everybody's clear on a destination. We want to win. We want to go back home, or just going back home is the destination. What's the strategy? We're going to win. Now, tactics are where sometimes we see the biggest level of variation and even some of the biggest level of discontent amongst the people whom we're trying to work with, how we're actually going to get it done. You see? So it's something that, again, for you all to kind of maybe give a little bit of thought to. I'm not going to go much further on it. I know there was a lot of conversation in the chat room, so I may have missed some of your questioning there. And I know, of course, I'm going to get blamed for picking on the sister earlier. But again, that's, sometimes people don't know what's really going on, what's really happening. But she knows I wasn't picking on it because she was laughing and everything after. She know we talking, but when you got family and you love them, you gotta talk real. You gotta keep it real, man. If you really love them, and especially if you see them doing something that doesn't make any sense, or you see them going the wrong way. Now they may say, you don't know what you're talking about, just like a child will tell a parent that at times. You don't know, I know what I'm doing. Okay, well, let me just drop this little bug in your ear. You might not know what you're doing. Now go on and do what you want to do. So that's all it's really about. And of course, like I said, it always sounds harsh and rough when a man is talking. When a woman is talking, then we'll just say, oh, she's hurt. Something happened to her. That's a shame. Sister, don't worry about it. Stay cool. When it's a brother, it's like, look at that brute. Look at that mannish, horrible brute. Telling you, man, the program is deep. It's real deep. It's real deep. So you get those thumbs down on the videos and he picking on that. I ain't picking on her. That woman know what she's saying. She ain't a weakling. I know who I'm talking to. I know who to give the velvet glove touch, and who doesn't need the velvet glove touch. But she got the velvet glove anyway. I kept it fun. I kept it light, but I also kept it honest. All right, so we'll be back tomorrow night. The 9 p.m. show that you all seem to like so much because you think I'm tired at the end of the day and I get loose, but I don't. I should make it super boring tomorrow night, just to be contrary. But we'll be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. All right, you can all call in or get on the YouTube, whatever you want to do. And if you have any questions about today's segment, feel free to just put them in the comments on YouTube, and I'll do the same thing like I did. And I see that, Michelle, you did ask Chief, is freedom in the mind? I'll answer those questions tomorrow, but you should check out the show on freedom because I actually already answered that. All right. But I'll scan the chat room for any questions that may have come up that I missed in this segment. All right. We come into our 90 seconds.
90 seconds.
All right. So until such time, family, I will build with you all tomorrow. And don't be afraid to share your perspectives in the chat room or otherwise. Let me just throw that out before I leave. Ain't nobody jumping on you. But it's no different than if you go somewhere and you say, I got a better way of doing something. Let's say if you cook pies and we're teaching a certain way to cook pies, and you come and you say, well, 60 seconds is coming up.
60 seconds.
All right, baby love. And you say, well, I want to cook pies this way. This is the way I've observed and I've learned. And we say, we're going to cook your pie. Let's do a little taster's test. Let's have a bake-a-thon. And you cook your pie and it's disgusting. Well, we gonna tell you it's disgusting because you bust up all in the spot acting all brazen like you 30, like you were saying something. So, just look at it like that. It's friendly. It's not competition. It's not that, but it's friendly correction. And again, I'm open if someone says, well, listen, let me break this down. Da, 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 da. Like I said in another segment previously, 10 seconds. Come on, baby, where you at? Come on, baby.
10 seconds.
She running a little slow. Yeah, she running a little slow. We was making some good love last night. Good love and make a woman crazy, make a woman lazy. D make her lazy. Sometimes, man, you gotta learn how to pull back on the D a little bit. It makes them real lazy. You don't want to do nothing after that. Coming and making my announcements all late and everything like that. But like I was saying, it's all love. So if someone comes in, like I said, you can respectfully challenge teachers or even authority in a certain space, whether you like it or not. In this space, I'm the teacher and authority. I'm sorry if you're not comfortable with that, which I can respect. There's other places you can go where people are not as it's not so much about a mission. Some people's shows are just about talking. They just want to interact with people on YouTube, or they feel like they learned something and they just want to talk about it or whatever. Everyone has their own different thing they're doing. What we're doing here, this is not about me having some talk show or something like that. It's not about that at all. This is addendum study and learning for those who are trying to fix their lives and those who are trying to live a higher and a better quality of life and reclaim what was taken from them. So as a result, the requirements for even inclusion in certain conversations may be a little bit different, because if something is said that may lead people astray, or if there's a teaching moment, it's going to be brought out. So look at these shows as, and in the beginning, if you notice, I never said shows. I hated using that term, actually. I used to always say segment. If you listen to the earlier shows, I would always say in this segment. And over time, I guess I got polluted and corrupted, to be honest. I started using the term show. But it's not a show. This is not for entertainment. So you just look at it like you're stepping into a classroom. So if I'm talking, you're in my classroom. If Kim is talking, you're in Kim's classroom. Felicia's talking, you're in Felicia's classroom. Damon's talking, you're in Damon's classroom. You see, if the students are talking, then it's an open classroom discussion. That's why we call it the open panel discussion. So I don't have a problem with someone saying, I feel this way or feel that way about what's being said. That's cool, but just understand that you might get corrected. And if you're in a situation where you're being taught and you're like, well, teacher, you don't know what you're talking about, then you need to go to another classroom, because that's what this is. This is a classroom. And sometimes people don't realize that for whatever reason. Maybe that needs to be a PSA. And I don't say that out of arrogance, because like I said, even if I'm not here, it's still a classroom. That's what this thing is about. So you're welcome to come and share your perspectives and how you feel and stuff. But like I said, I'm sensitive to everyone who's listening, who may get led astray by some of the things you say that don't make any sense. And it's only been a handful of times where I've allowed people on these segments to say stuff that didn't make sense. And that's a part of a tactic. Sometimes you got to use certain tactics to keep the peace. And because sometimes by bringing certain things out, and it gets so crazy that the ultimate point will be lost. So you gotta take that. You gotta sacrifice your perspective. And I'll learn to get better at that, sister, because like you said, I'm full of myself. So I'm gonna have to learn how to humble up and even get even better at that. But I just want to put that out there. A lot of you gonna say things that don't make sense, and a lot of you do. All right. You didn't come here because you were all knowing. And like Brother Shaga said earlier, when the sister was kind of breaking everything down, he said, where's your school? Right. So, if you're here, chances are it's because it's something that is here that you don't have, something that you want to learn, or something that you want to come into that you don't currently have. And I'm going to show you how to get there. Now, if you disagree with if you disagree with my strategy of how to get there, then you really need to sit back and re-examine. You may not like my tactics, but you may have to sit back and think about, well, wait a minute, do I really even need this? Maybe I am beyond this. Maybe he's so sure about what he's talking about, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I know what I'm talking about. Maybe I need to do my own thing. I'm cool with all that, man. That's all good. But just understand that if you come here and you say something that don't make sense, then you're gonna be asked certain questions. I'm not gonna embarrass you. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. That's not cool. But understand that sometimes things you might say because of your own lack of knowing and maybe even your own ignorance, sometimes it's actually offensive. And you guys don't realize it. Like even sister, the statements you said about alpha men, that would be offensive. Those statements were offensive to men. Like I said, brothers sometimes unknowingly be doing it. Again, the projection that we're just dumb and stalwart. So it can actually be offensive. Now we can choose to respond with offense, or we can choose to respond by teaching. So just understand that sometimes what you may be saying, or even some of the ideas and the perceptions that you have that are not really based off of truth, but are based off of your twisted perspective. That's it. May not be as innocuous as you may think they are. Like sometimes you hear females say, "Oh, well, all men are dogs." All men just want us to stick their thing into a warm hole. They're dogs. You might not realize that that's actually pretty offensive. That's just, I'm sure, the same way you might feel if a guy says, "Well, all women are sluts." They just want somebody to come and rub them up and love them up and take them out, buy them something to eat, but they're all just a bunch of sluts. It's kind of offensive, right? But because we live in a society that has been, feminized, certain statements like that are accepted as commonplace. You see it in TV shows, and we're just supposed to accept that and say, "Yes, it's cool, it's all right." And if someone says, "Well, wait a minute, hold on, where are you getting that from?" And they're asking for some real clarity, of course you can't provide it because you got it from your overlord, and your God never reveals himself to you. So you don't, that's where it really came from your programming, and the best programmed are the ones who are uninformed, So just understand that these are opportunities for you to learn. I know some of you come into these platforms because you think I knew it's an opportunity for you to teach. And some of you think that if you can destroy what's being presented, it proves your own power, but it actually doesn't. It may only prove your rebellion or your aggressive ignorance. It may only prove that. So just, give that some thought, man. But I don't want to scare anyone off from feeling like if they don't agree with me, they can't speak, because that's not the case at all. That's why I said the best thing you guys ask somebody what they mean. They say something. What do you mean by that? Get some clarity. You may find that maybe some people are not as great with expressing themselves, but you're saying the same thing. But maybe they just may have used some words in there that were a little wrong here and there. So it's always good to ask for clarity, even though some people use that as an excuse when they get caught saying something stupid. Oh, it's the way I said it. So you got to learn how to use some discernment there to know if someone's being authentic or not. If they're really just that ignorant or that deceitful. All right, so now we're gonna head out. I just wanted to share that to everyone so you don't get scared off from sharing. And I know for some they'll listen to that, and others they're not gonna get it. You picking on the sister? It's just gonna get stuck there. All right, I'm loving the sister. Sister's been listening for a long time, coming in and holding her little rebellious ground. I'm cool with that. I ain't got no problem with that. She can do that all day. Eventually she gonna get it. You can't be around this much information and light and not get fixed. You're gonna get it eventually. I'm cool. There's no rush. All right. So I'll see you all tomorrow evening, 9 p.m. Today's Tuesday. Yeah, tomorrow's Wednesday. Yeah, tomorrow evening, 9 p.m. on More Community. We'll be digging into more good old information. All right. To such time. Peace.